another subject. The Nigerian government says it has concluded plans to secure a fresh 1.5 billion loan facility from the World Bank. The move, it says, is part of efforts to address the fiscal gap in the 2023 budget. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, disclosed this while speaking with journalists at the ongoing 2023 annual meetings of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund in Marrakesh, Morocco. Edun noted that Nigeria has become almost number one on investors' list when they want to look at where to invest. He promised that there will be a coordination of monetary and fiscal policies, while also pledging that President Bola Tinubu's administration will not breach ways and means limits. Well, Yemi, let me start with you. Yeah, while they're not telling us they will not breach ways and means limits in violation of Section 38 of the CBN Act, which was standard practice under the Buhari administration. Now they say they want to borrow $1.5 billion because there's no provision in the 2023 Appropriation Act for more money. Now, in 4 months of the Tinubu administration, they've already borrowed over $1.9 billion. Okay, so they just keep borrowing on top of our heads. Money that nobody is prepared to pay. There's no provision for it to be paid for. So what are we dealing with here, really? Just empty promises, keep borrowing in an economy that there's no production. There's just consumption. Yeah. What do you think? You are the civil society placard carrier. Okay, activist. Sorry, activist.
Even just as a citizen, really. I think, I mean, to the point that you've made, 1.9 plus another 1.5. And I think it's the point that we keep making all the time. If you are borrowing money for production, not consumption, if you are borrowing money that citizens feel that you are borrowing to make their lives better, then you can have an honest conversation about what you are borrowing money for. I mean, there's a video that's going around today about a community in Ogun State that they sent a quarter bag of rice to be shared amongst the 147 households, and they were sending it back to Governor Dapo Abiodun and saying that they don't need it. If you really want to do palliatives, this is not how to do it. There's also a story that all the 360 House of Rep members are going to get brand new Land Cruisers worth 160 million naira each. So you do that in the context, there's documents floating around about how much the presidency spent, and that's just the presidency spent on going to Onga. That's excluding all the other ministers that went and their own budgets. And on top of that, you're saying subsidies removed, you're increasing tariffs on electricity, education is going up, cost of living is going up, but then you're borrowing. So there's just a disconnect, really, between what you say you're borrowing for and the fact that you're trying to produce and the impact on the quality of lives of Nigerians. Is that new? No. As you rightly said, the Buhari administration did exactly the same thing. Did they get away with it? Yes. And might I surmise that this administration also presumes that they will be able to get away with it?
Why shouldn't they?
Precisely, exactly. So, and I guess, and it's a larger conversation, which is why I said even just as a citizen, it's a larger conversation as citizens, then what? What then does all this 1.5, 1.4, what does it really mean in real terms? And what can citizens do about it? It's hard work to get citizens to even understand what this means, understand what the impact of debt for the next God knows how many years is, and what can you do to hold your National Assembly members accountable to either not pass it when we have a sitting senator. I think there's another video clip of a senator standing up and saying, but we didn't discuss this thing, you can't just have sent it for approval. That's what we're dealing with, and it's not pretty.
Well, debt service to revenue ratio of almost 100%. Domestic debt of over 69.75%. Total debt stock of over 87 trillion naira. And here we are, we want to borrow more.
And I'm wondering why, I mean, there's also been, just to add to that, there's been advocacy for a number of years around what role can citizens play in putting pressure on institutions like the World Bank and the IMF from lending money to, because the point we're saying is that we are the ones that's going to pay you. Yeah, you're lending to the government, but it's citizens that's stuck with this debt burden. This administration, if they do 4 years, they'll be gone. then, but we will still have to pay.
No, they will ask for a second term.
I'm just saying, that's why I said if they do. But my point is, I'm just trying to use even if they do the shortest period, which is 4 years, they will go. And citizens will have to pay. So what, and I'm not quite sure, I don't know, maybe you know, what that level of advocacy for citizens putting pressure on these institutions.
The thing is this, so let's put it this way, and I'll go to that point. People or institutions borrow money because they have no money.
Yeah.
So the reason why the government...
So we borrow for consumption.
Well,
borrowing for productivity.
So that's the first level. The first level is that because we're broke, so we need money. Second level is what do we do with the money?
Exactly.
I think that's a real question. That's it. And to be honest, 1.9 plus 1.5 billion is not actually a lot for a country like Nigeria. When you look at it very well.
But it's not that. No. But you're saying it as if then it will stop.
No,
so in 4 months, that's the point. In 4 months, we've done 1.9. We're now done 1.5. Then maybe in another 4 months, we'll do it.
I think two things. I think we, the people, should push for a government that spends money on something that will be useful for most people.
Exactly.
Not a few, and we can see. But you see, for the international institutions that give the money out, there was one time there was a concept which we were alluding to the concept of odious debt. Odious debt is a debt that you give out without following due diligence, and at some point you ask for it, whilst the thing is putting pressure on the citizens who are not part of your agreement. That was one of the cards that was used under Olusegun Obasanjo's regime, and there was a huge movement. There was a place in Assisi, there was a San Francisco movement where people gathered to actually push that, and they got debt relief. I'm worried now that it will not be easy to get debt relief again. But by the same account, and here you go to what citizens can do, I think these international institutions giving the debt as well, they should prove that they're giving the debt for reasonable things. And if they cannot prove for reasonable reason, my view is that in 5-10 years' time, we're just going to tell them we're not paying. Because
I like that.
Yes, at some point we just say, no, I've already been telling some of them that if you keep doing this thing, expect me in the forefront of people who tell you we're not going to pay this money. Because if I walk into a bank anywhere in the world, they're going to give you money. They tend to do due diligence and not only make sure you don't want to use the money to party, but you want to use it to do something you can pay for.
Right.
That is why the loan gets interest. In the country, and this is where the spending you're talking about, we have a situation of beggars in tuxedo. So that these people begging for money are spending lavishly.
Yeah.
I think at some point they have to look at that. And that this is, the West is doing a lot, from the banks to the institution to United Nations to diffuse the tension of anti-West and conspiracy theories. But I think they want to do more. This is one of the things that they need to do. This sort of moral perception, they need to deal with it.
Okay, let me get Professor Awolawo's view on this.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the...
Because maybe they need to borrow money to pay... professors' salaries.
The professors' end is too small for this kind of money we're talking about. It's really very concerning. When President Buhari left, we thought the debt, this thing, total was 77 trillion. Now we know it's 10 trillion higher, 87 trillion. The government itself, this current government, did indicate that it was very troubled by the fact that nearly 100% of all our earning goes into debt services. So if you say that, and on the one hand, on the other, you are going to still to borrow more money, it's a contradiction. IMF and World Bank itself also spoke out not too long ago that Nigeria's debt is becoming unsustainable. And the same IMF, World Bank, and Bretton Woods are the ones now lending more money. And now that they are lending, they have changed the tone to say, Nigeria can deal with the debt as it is not so bad. So all of those contradictions are, and then the issue of what are we borrowing for? The minister said to meet budget deficit, which means for consumption. Which means for consumption. And now, fuel subsidy is gone. We are making more money from it. What is all the money being used for?
Gone.
People praise former Tanzanian President Magufuli for his rejection of debt, of borrowing, managing the resources in a manner that he was able to carry out many developmental projects without borrowing. That is one of the things we remember him for today. What is wrong with, after removing fuel subsidy, managing these resources in a way that we won't need to compound our debt structure? Those are the issues. One final thing, the civils, all of us have a role to play. President Obama said some time ago that politicians will do what they like if citizens don't hold them to account.
Yeah.
And so what needs to happen is for citizens to hold government to account so that this kind of things don't happen. Since Parliament, as we can see, is just a rubber stamp
in a
for
hurry.
the executive.
To pass.
Okay, let's take one final topic.